The storm had not been in the forecast. That was the first thing that struck Adrian Hale as he stepped out of the glass doors of Haletech Tower and watched snow swirl in frantic circles across the city streets. It was barely late afternoon, yet the sky hung low and gray, pressing the world beneath it. His driver hurried to open the car door, but that was when he heard the sound, soft, shaky, almost swallowed by the wind. A child's voice. And then he saw her, a tiny girl, no more than 7, standing by the marble steps in a too thin coat, her boots dusted with snow, her small hands clenched around a faded pink backpack. She lifted her head, her lips trembling, and said the words that made the cold slice deep into him. "Sir, my mom didn't come home last night." If you believe in kindness, compassion, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our W Insights. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Adrian froze, not because he didn't know what to do, but because something about the child's eyes, round and fearful, tugged open a door he had spent years trying to keep sealed shut. Her name, he soon learned, was Mara Linwood, and she had been waiting since morning, standing quietly near the entrance, watching adults rush past her without a second glance. She had only approached him because, she said shyly, "You look like someone who might listen." Her mother, Sarah Linwood, worked as a night cleaner in the building. She never missed a shift. She never failed to come home. And Mara had gone to the tiny apartment last night to wait, sitting at the kitchen table until sunrise alone. The snow thickened as Adrian listened. He realized she was shaking not just from cold, but from exhaustion. He gave his coat to his driver and wrapped his own around her small shoulders, feeling how light she was beneath the fabric. He didn't stop to question why he cared. He simply called security, gathered his team, and decided he would retrace Sarah's path himself. Something in him insisted he go. Something he hadn't felt in years, an ache he didn't want to name. They began with the security logs, but the system lagged from an overnight outage. So he followed Mara's steps instead, letting her lead him across the plaza and down the street, where the snow quieted the city's usual chaos. She walked without complaint, though her face reddened with cold. At one point she stumbled, and he steadied her gently, surprised at how naturally his hand fit at her back, as if protecting her had always been his instinct. When they reached a narrow alley behind the building, an area Sarah would cross to reach the late-night bus, Adrian saw signs the workers had missed earlier. A dropped keycard. A torn edge of a glove. Footprints half buried but still visible. He realized with a sinking feeling that Sarah hadn't simply vanished, something had happened here, and no one had noticed. No one had cared enough to look closely. Memories pressed into him then, long nights of his own childhood waiting for a mother who struggled under the weight of endless jobs, exhaustion, and bad luck. He had built an empire so he would never feel powerless again. But standing in that alley, beside a brave little girl trying not to cry, he felt the old truth return. Power meant nothing if he didn't use it for someone who needed it. Working with local officers, Adrian pushed through abandoned warehouses, icy stairwells, and dim corridors where the wind moaned like a warning. Mara stayed close to him, trusting him with the fearless, heartbreaking trust only a child in need could give. And he felt the weight of it, an invisible promise forming between them. Hours later, as the storm thinned, they found Sarah. She was lying inside a poorly lit storage room of an old textile building, barely conscious, her breathing shallow. She had slipped on the iced pavement the night before and collapsed. Weak, freezing, and unable to call for help, she had spent the night in darkness as the temperature dropped too low for anyone to survive for long. But she had held on, because of Mara, she whispered weakly as they lifted her onto a stretcher, because she needed to see her daughter again. Mara threw herself into her mother's arms, sobbing with relief. Adrian stepped back, overwhelmed by the sight. It felt private, sacred, yet somehow he belonged there too, watching them cling to each other as if the world had almost succeeded in pulling them apart. He helped ensure Sarah received medical care and arranged temporary housing in a warm hotel suite until she recovered fully. When Mara fell asleep in a chair beside her mother's hospital bed, Adrian placed his own scarf over her shoulders so she wouldn't wake up shivering. Sarah tried to thank him, but he shook his head, feeling emotion rise in his throat. He didn't want gratitude. He only wished he had been someone who noticed sooner. In the days that followed, snow melted, revealing streets glistening like new beginnings. Sarah healed. Mara laughed again. And Adrian found himself stopping by more often than he expected, bringing food, checking on them, listening to stories that warmed the quiet corners inside him. He was no longer just a CEO watching from distant windows, he had become a man who remembered what it meant to reach out when it mattered. When Sarah returned to work weeks later, she discovered her position had been upgraded, her pay increased, and her schedule adjusted so she would be home with Mara every night. Not because Adrian wanted praise, but because he had finally realized that his power was meant to mend, not simply build. And in the soft light of a winter afternoon, Mara gave him a drawing she made, him holding her hand in the snow, leading her toward the light. He kept it. He still keeps it, framed on his office wall, a reminder of the moment his heart thawed in the middle of a storm. If this story touched your heart even in a small way, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our W Insights. Your engagement helps these stories continue to reach those who need hope. Special request: comment what you felt during the story, your voice matters more than you know.